You won't fly. Prepare to die.
The movie kicks off in London, right inside Wendy and John's house. Inside the home, we see Mary and George, Wendy's parents, getting ready to head out to a party. But right at this moment, George is super annoyed because he can't find his gold shirt cufflinks. Over in another room, we see their kids, John and Michael, playing around with swords. John is calling himself Captain Hook, who's this legendary evil character, while Michael calls himself Peter Pan, another legendary character who's actually good and helps people out. A little bit later, their older sister Wendy comes in, and we learn that she totally loves Peter and genuinely believes he's real, telling her brothers stories about him every single day. Then there's Nana, their dog, who acts as their nanny. Right after that, their dad George enters the room looking for his cufflinks and asks the kids about them. That's when John asks Michael about the cufflinks he hid, and Michael says he forgot where he put them. As George keeps looking for the cufflinks, he discovers that his kids drew a map right on his shirt, and they tell him it's a treasure map. Wendy tells him that every treasure needs a map, which makes their dad lose his temper. He calls out Wendy and accuses her of being the reason the boys are so misbehaved. So starting today, she's being moved into her own separate room. Everyone is shocked, and they try to calm their dad down so he takes back the punishment, but he completely ignores them. When George walks out of the room, he trips over Nana, and they both crash to the floor. The crazy part is that the kids run over to check on Nana and leave their dad lying there. George gets offended and furious, deciding to punish Nana by tying her up outside the house. A bit later, the kids go to bed, and that's when Michael remembers where the cufflinks are and hands them to his mom. After that, Mary goes to close the window, but Wendy stops her and asks her to leave it open because Peter Pan might show up tonight, especially since she found his shadow that he left behind yesterday. When Mary hears this, she just thinks Wendy is imagining things, so she leaves her alone and walks away. Right at that moment, Peter Pan appears up on the roof, sneaks into the house through the window, and brought along a tiny fairy named Tinkerbell. The two of them start searching all over for his shadow so they can grab it and leave. Suddenly, Tink hears a rustling sound coming from a drawer, and when they open it up, they find Peter's shadow. Unfortunately, the drawer accidentally snaps shut on Tink, while Peter starts running around trying to catch his shadow, messing up the whole room in the process. At that point, Wendy wakes up, and as soon as she sees Peter, she's super thrilled. She notices Peter trying to stick his shadow back on with a piece of soap, so she tells him she'll help out and sews his shadow back on for him. Meanwhile, Tink is still trapped inside the drawer, and hearing Wendy talk to Peter makes her totally jealous. Afterward, Peter tells Wendy that he loves coming by every day to listen to the stories she tells her brothers about it, mentioning that he goes back and tells those same stories to the kids at his place. Wendy gets sad and tells him she won't be able to tell any more stories because her dad punished her by making her sleep in her own room away from her brothers. Hearing this, Peter suggests that Wendy come along with him to Neverland and tell those stories to the orphan kids living with him, inviting her to check out the kids there and take care of them. Wendy agrees and thanks Peter. Right then, Tink breaks free from the drawer and pulls Wendy's hair out of pure jealousy. Because of all the noise they're making, Wendy's brothers wake up, and Wendy decides to bring them along to Neverland too. Peter sprinkles some pixie dust from Tink all over them so they can fly and join him on the trip to Neverland. On the way, Peter tells Wendy that Neverland is the second star to the right, and Wendy, along with her brothers, are having the time of their lives flying through the air. Out on the sea, we see Captain Hook's ship with his crew, who are telling Smee, Hook's first mate, that they want to get off the island so they can head back to the open ocean and go back to being real pirates. Moving over to Captain Hook, he's staring at an open map, searching everywhere for the location of Neverland so he can reach Peter, but unfortunately, he can't figure it out. So, he decides to kidnap Princess Tiger Lily, the native chief's daughter, saying she's the only one who can lead him to Peter Pan. Smee objects and tries to change Hook's mind, but Hook snaps at him, declaring he won't let Peter Pan go and that he must get his revenge because Peter cut off his hand back in the day and fed it to a crocodile. Ever since then, that crocodile has been stalking him across the sea because he loved the taste of his meat. Right on cue, the crocodile shows up, wanting to eat Captain Hook, who is completely terrified and yells at Smee to get rid of it by any means necessary, which Smee manages to do. Suddenly, they hear one of the sailors shout that Peter Pan has been spotted. When Hook looks through his spyglass, he sees Peter flying in with Wendy and her brothers. Captain Hook immediately orders his men to fire the cannons at Peter, but luckily, not a single shot hits him. Peter tells Tink to take Wendy and her brothers ahead to the island while he handles his battle with Captain Hook. Tink takes them and flies off fast, purposely trying to get them lost because she can't stand Wendy. After a short while, Tink lands on the island, wakes up all the lost boys, and tells them there's a giant, dangerous bird on the island that they need to eliminate. The kids start throwing rocks at Wendy and her brothers, but luckily, right before Wendy hits the ground, Peter Pan swoops in and catches her at the very last second. Peter gets furious at the kids for doing that, but they tell him Tink was the one who told them to do it. Peter confronts Tink and punishes her by banning her from the island for a week. He then tells the kids to take John and Michael and play together, while he takes Wendy to show her the mermaids in the lagoon. While the kids are playing, John notices some native tracks on the ground, so he decides to round up the group to hunt them down quickly. Meanwhile, deep in the jungle, Michael is being trailed by one of the natives who wants to capture him, though Michael has no idea what's happening and thinks it's just a game. Shortly after, the entire tribe appears, captures all the kids, and brings them straight to their chief. It turns out the kids usually play with them all the time, but this time the chief is enraged and refuses to let them go because his daughter, Tiger Lily, was kidnapped, and he thinks the kids are responsible. Switching back to Peter Pan, who was watching the mermaids, he notices a small rowboat heading toward their island. On the boat are Captain Hook and his mate, Smee, and as Peter looks closer, he sees they're heading toward the ocean cave with Princess Tiger Lily, while the crocodile follows close behind, waiting for a chance to eat Hook. Seeing this, Peter decides to follow them immediately to rescue Princess Tiger Lily. He overhears Hook demanding that Tiger Lily reveal Peter Pan's hideout, warning her that if she doesn't talk, he'll leave her tied up in the cave to drown as the tide comes in. Peter gets an idea and makes a loud, booming voice outside to scare Hook. As soon as Hook steps out to investigate the noise, Peter takes advantage of the distraction, sneaks inside, mimics Hook's voice, and tells Smee to take the princess and let her go. But unfortunately, when Smee steps out, Hook yells at him and orders him back inside. When Hook returns to the cave, he spots Peter inside and tries to attack him from behind, but Wendy calls out a warning to Peter, saving him just in time. Peter flies up fast, snatches the gun right out of Hook's hand, and tosses it to Smee, telling him to shoot, which causes Smee to fire wildly everywhere, almost hitting Hook instead. Peter goes back to fighting Hook and manages to knock him off the cliff ledge. Down below, the crocodile is waiting in the water, ready to snap him up the moment he falls. When Hook hits the water, the crocodile tries everything to eat him, but Hook barely manages to stand on the gator's snout until Smee arrives at the last second to pull him out. Peter takes Wendy, and they go ahead to save Princess Tiger Lily. Shortly after, Hook gets back to his main ship and talks with Smee about how to get revenge on Peter Pan. Smee mentions that Peter punished Tink and banished her from Neverland for a week, giving Hook an idea to manipulate Tink for his own plan. Back with Peter Pan, he returns Princess Tiger Lily to her father and explains everything that happened. The chief thanks him for saving his daughter and throws a huge celebration party in his honor. At the party, Wendy notices that Peter isn't paying any attention to her and is focusing way more on Tiger Lily, which really upsets her. Meanwhile, Hook manages to track down Tink and talks to her, claiming he's leaving the island tomorrow for good and leaving it all to Peter Pan. The moment he brings up Wendy's name, Tink flies into a rage, so Hook takes advantage of the situation and suggests helping her get rid of Wendy. When Tink agrees, Hook asks her where Peter's secret hideout is, promising he's only going to kidnap Wendy for her. Unfortunately, Tink falls for it and marks Peter's hideout location on his map. Right after, Hook traps her inside a glass jar so she can't escape or warn Peter about what he's planning. Back at the hideout, John and Michael are playing around, pretending to be part of the tribe. Wendy walks in and tells them to pack up so they can head back home tomorrow morning. Peter overhears this and tells her nobody is going home and that they're staying here forever. But Wendy rejects the idea, turning to the kids to tell them that this isn't where they belong and that their real home is with their parents. Hearing this, the kids decide they want to go home too. At that very moment, Captain Hook and his crew have surrounded Peter's hideout. Inside, Wendy is finalized on taking the kids and leaving, which makes Peter furious, telling her that if she walks out that door, she can never come back to Neverland again. Wendy ignores his warning, gathers the children, and steps outside. But the second they walk out, Hook grabs her and all the kids, leaving behind a wrapped gift box inside Peter's home. Hook takes them back to his ship, ties up all the children, and tells them he'll spare their lives if they agree to serve him and clean the ship every single day. The kids agree out of fear, but Wendy refuses, assuring the boys that Peter will definitely come rescue them. Hearing this, Hook laughs hysterically and reveals to Wendy that the box he left in Peter's house has her name on, telling Peter not to open it until 3 o'clock. But inside is actually a bomb designed to blow him up the instant he opens it. Hearing this from inside her glass jar, Tink smashes her way out and flies as fast as she can to save Peter. She reaches him just in time and tries to yank the box out of his hands right before he opens it. But as they pull back and forth, the bomb detonates. When Wendy and the kids hear the massive explosion from the ship, they think Peter is gone for good. Hook then demands that Wendy walk the plank into the ocean, or he'll throw the kids in himself. Wendy decides to jump, but luckily Peter appears out of nowhere and catches her right before she hits the water. Peter flies back onto the ship and engages in a final duel with Captain Hook. During the fight, Hook's hook gets stuck deep in the wooden deck, giving Peter the chance to quickly untie all the kids. After a few struggles, Hook frees his hand and resumes the fight, but Peter overpowers him and knocks him straight overboard into the water. The crocodile is right there waiting and starts chasing Hook across the sea to devour him. Peter then spreads pixie dust all over the pirate ship, making the entire vessel lift up into the sky to fly Wendy and her brothers back home. Meanwhile, Mary and George return home, and when they step inside to check on the kids, they find Wendy asleep right by the open window. When they wake her up, Wendy excitedly tells them everything that happened, but, as usual, nobody believes her. To prove she's telling the truth, Wendy points out the window to show them Peter's ship flying across the night sky. The second George sees the glowing ship in the clouds, he realizes she was telling the truth, remembering that he used to see that exact same flying ship when he was a little boy. George makes peace with his daughter, telling her the punishment is over and that starting tomorrow, she can sleep back in her room with her younger brothers, leaving the whole family believing in the magic of Peter Pan.
And with that, our movie ends. Hope you liked the recap. If you reached the end, don't forget to leave a like on the video and write us a nice comment as you always do. And for those watching us for the first time, subscribe to the channel to see all the upcoming recaps. See you in the next movie. Peace.